we're going to go ahead now and look at some of these on our practice final. We're going to focus on the ones that I know we struggle with more than anything else. So we'll look at some of the applications, and we might also do one like question 7. The factoring, we've done a lot of those already, and you've got it already worked out. So you can see how I worked them out, right? If you go back and you look at the key, every question I worked out with all the steps. So this is really going to help you prepare for your final. But let's look at the ones that I know students struggle with on the setup. And specifically question 12. So we're going to start with question 12. We're going to talk about how we set up question 12 and why it's set up the way that it is. So question 12. You're going to see one like this on your take-home final and also on your final exam next week. Different numbers. It might be question 15 instead of question 12. But pretty much the exact same problem. Now let's remember how we set this one up. Walt made an extra $5,000 last year from a part-time job. He invested part of the money at 8 and the rest at 10. He made a total of $480 in interest. How much did he invest at each rate? Now, we covered this type of question way back in Chapter 1. This is an investment problem. So we're going to have to put these investments together. So that means we're going to have to draw a picture. And remember, what do we know about each of these bank accounts? Well, bank accounts have 3 things in them. They have an interest rate, they have the amount of money that's in that account, and they have the interest that it pays out. And the interest is the calculated part. So when I read this question, we're going to start with the $5,000. So Walt made an extra $5,000 last year. So that $5,000, well, that is going to represent your total amount. So that's going to go here. So the $5,000 goes right here. Is everyone okay with that? Right? That's your total amount. And we've got it in 2 separate funds. So then we took that $5,000 and we put part of it at 8% and the rest at 10%. Is everyone okay with how I did that? Okay, so we've got the $5,000 total. That's here. We've got an 8% account and we've got a 10% account. Now, remember how we set these up. Do we know how much money is in the 8% account? No. Okay, so what goes there? X. Remember that? Now, what about the other one? Do we know how much is in the 10% account? No. How do we determine what goes here? We can't just use the X again because it's different. What is that? Remember, that's going to be your total minus what? Does anyone remember? Total minus X. And what's my total? Yep, 5,000. So that's going to be 5,000 minus X there. Is everyone okay with how I set that one up? Now, did we work with the 480 yet? No. That is the interest, and that is the second half. So now we're going to go ahead and work with the interest. I'm not going to solve this one completely out. I'm going to get you to the equation, and you can see how it's solved. That's already done. Where students struggle at is how do I make the diagram, and how do I get the equation? Now we look at our interest. And the interest is the amount times the percentage rate as a decimal. So for our first account, 8%, so that's 0.08. And how much is in there? Unknown amount, X. Next fund, 10%, so that's 0.1. How much is in there? 5,000 minus X, and we always make that equal to the total interest. And if we read this question, the total interest is going to be 480. And you can finish it from there. I'm not going to waste our time working it out. You've already got it worked out in that answer key. I just wanted to make sure that we remember how to set it up. That's the hard part, is the setup. So that's why I picked question 12, because I know that students always struggle with how to set it up. (13) is a question that you've had on a previous exam. It is very, very, very easy, but it's actually one of the most commonly missed questions because it is so easy. So do not miss question 13. It's the same on your take-home final, just different numbers. We're not going to have to do a diagram. This is an easy one. A plane climbs from 10,000 feet to 32,000 feet. The plane goes up at a rate of 5,500 feet per minute. How long is it going to take to reach that cruising altitude? Well, first off, we need to find out how far we actually went up. So that's our first step. We need to figure out how far we went up. So we start at 10,000 and we go up to 32,000. So we got our 32,000 where we end up at. We're going to take away 10,000 and that gives us then a difference of 22,000 feet. So that's how far we went up. Now, what we want to do from here is we want to figure out how long it takes us. And time is going to be the distance divided by the rate. Remember that? And we want to find the time. So how far did we go up? We went up 22,000 feet. How long does it take? We don't know. But how quickly can we go up? We can go up at 5,500 feet per minute. Now, all we need to do is divide, and that's going to give us our final answer here. So 22,000, divide that by 5,500. That gives you then 4, so it takes 4 minutes. That is an easy question. All you have to do is subtract and divide. That's it. Do not try to make it more difficult. And again, this is one of the most commonly missed questions because it is so easy. You think there's more to it when there's actually not. It's designed to be easy points. That's why I put that one in there. Easy points. 14. You can see how 14 is done. It's just using the interest formula. 15 we'll talk about. And 15 is a pretty easy question too, but 15 is an average. Now, we talk about average, like average scores on an exam. Let's say 10 people took the exam. What do? We add up all the scores, and we divide it by 10. That's going to be your average. Same concept goes here. We're looking at rounds of golf. And this is an inequality as well. So, Raymond, wants to play 5 rounds of golf. He wants his average to be 90 or less. He's already done 4 of the rounds. So he's got an 88, a 93, a 90, and an 89. And we want to know what he needs to score to make his goal. So the first thing we need to look at is, what are we trying to find? Well, we want this average to be, what, 90 or less. So we want the average to be 90 or less. So that's going to be less than or equal to 90. That's our first part there. Now, what do we know about the rounds of golf that he's already done? Well, we know we've got to have 5 of them. And the last one we don't know. So that's going to be our 5th round. That's the one we've got to find. So that's the unknown. And he's already went through 4 rounds. So he got an 88, a 93, a 90, and an 89. And how do we find our average? Well, to find our average, we've got to add these all together. And we're going to be dividing it by 5 because he's went through 5 rounds of golf. And that's what we've got. They're all going to be added together, and they're going to be divided by 5. Now, I even kept the number of rounds the same, so the one in your take-home final and the one in your actual final is going to be 5 rounds of golf. Same thing, different numbers. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible to make sure we cover all of our outcomes in our final. And I'm trying to pick questions I know that are more theory to make sure you know how to solve them than to make them really difficult. So this is an easier question. So what do? Well, we go ahead and add them together. So we've got an 88, we've got a 93, a 90, and we've got an 89. We add them together, and that's 360 plus x over 5, and that's less than or equal to 90. I'll do one more step, and then you can finish it. And so we want to go ahead and finish this out. I'm going to make that over 1, and we're just going to simply cross multiply. So then when we cross multiply, we get 360 plus x is less than or equal to, I believe that's going to be 450. And you can finish it from there. But the important part's up here, because once you get to this step, you should not have any trouble solving it. All you have to do is subtract. But the important part is make sure you identify what the average needs to be, identify which one's missing, and identify your scores. Put it together. Remember that it's an average, so it has to be divided by 5, because there's 5 rounds of golf there. So that takes care of that one. And that one was just difficult because of the setup. Another one that we're going to look at that tricks students sometimes is one that has all of these fractions in it. One that I've seen give students trouble a lot of times is question 4. I wanted to do the applications first, just so we'd make sure we had plenty of time to go through those. And now we'll just look at some of the other questions that I know students always struggle with. And question 4 is one of them. What we need to do is we need to clear out these fractions. What I would recommend to make it as easy as possible and to reduce the likelihood of making a mistake is I want you to make all of these individual fractions. So rewrite this as 2 of them here. So I'm going to write this as x over 10 plus 6 over 10. See, I'm splitting them up. This way, when we clear out our fractions, we won't make a mistake. So this one's x minus 4 over 15. So I'm splitting that up into x over 15 and a minus 4 over 15. And then I've got x over 6 and a 2 over 6 as well. Now that everything's been split up into the individual components, we want to clear these out, so we need a least common denominator. And the least common denominator of 10 and 15 would be what? Can anyone tell me? 30. Okay. And does 30 work for the 6 also? Yep, it does. So 30 is going to work. If you split them up like this, you won't make a mistake. If you work with them the way they are here, you might make a mistake. So split them up into individual parts. And now we're going to multiply everything by 30. And it's been a little bit of time, but when we distribute that 30 through, what are we doing? We're dividing it by the number down below, multiplying it by the number on the top. So divide below, multiply on the top. So 30 divided by 10. 30 divided by 10 is a 3 times x, that makes it a 3x. 30 divided by 10 is a 3. 3 times 6, that makes it 18. 30 divided by 15 is 2 times x, that makes it a 2x. 30 divided by 15 is 2 times a negative 4, that makes it a negative 8. 30 divided by 6 is 5. 5 times x, that makes it a 5x there. 30 divided by 6 is a 5. 5 times 2 is a 10. Now we're going to clean it up. And this one's not going to have an answer. Remember, there are 3 types of equations. Conditional, where you get an answer. Identity, where the sides are the same. And a contradiction, where it doesn't make sense, where it's false. If I clean this up a bit, 3x and 2x, that makes it 5x. 18 and a minus 8, that makes it a 10. And look at what we know here. These are the same, aren't they? Okay. And if these are the same, then just remember, identical twins are the same, so this would be an identity. And your solution set would be negative to positive infinity, or all real numbers. So there's going to be one just like this on your final exam, different numbers. Instead of it being a 10, it might be a 5. Instead of it being a 15, it might be an 18. Instead of it being a 6, it might be a 2. But they're going to look almost exactly the same. You're going to solve it the exact same way. Another question that students struggle with is question 7. Just because of all the algebra that's involved with question 7. On your final, you can either have a page of notes or note cards, as many note cards as you think you need, or a page of notes. You can also use that flow chart that tells you what to do when you work out a question like 7. So question 7, we want to get this in both slope-intercept, and we want to get it in standard form. And this is, again, is one of the most commonly missed questions just because of the algebra. We did this in Chapter 2. We want to find the equation of a line. It needs to be parallel to that line, and it needs to pass through that point. So remember our flow chart. We had the 3 different ones. This is the last one. What do we do first? Well, in this question, we need to come up with a slope because we need to use the slope, the point slope formula at some point. So we have to come up with a slope. Now it's parallel, so what do we know about the slope? Parallel slopes have the same slope, right? Parallel lines have the same slope. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to solve this for y. And that's going to give us our slope. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this equation and we're going to solve it for y. Let's make sure I copied it down right. Yep, everything looks right there. 3, 4 is our point. So I'm going to move that 4x over. And that leaves you then with 5y equals a minus 4x and a minus 13. We'll divide by our 5 everywhere. And now we've got it in slope-intercept form. Most students make it to this step. Where the mistakes lie are either not knowing what to do next or making a mistake with the algebras after this. So what do we do once we found this? Well, we need to eventually use point slope. So we need a slope. We want it to be parallel. So that means we're going to use the same slope. And what is our slope here? Can someone tell me? Yep. Negative 4 over 5. And now we're going to use point slope. I always like to write our formula out. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And we've got 3 negative 4 for the point. And we're going to be using a slope of minus 4/5. This, by the way, is x1 and y1. When you plug these in, take your time. Do not rush through them. Commonly made mistakes are going to be things like sign errors. Forgetting that a double negative makes it positive. So take your time when you work through this question. Fill it in. Watch out for double negatives. So that's going to be y minus, use parentheses here, a minus 4. Commonly made mistake is students will forget about that double negative. And that equals a minus 4/5 times x minus 3. So that double negative right here is going to make that positive. So then that's y plus 4. That's one of the most common ones. The students will get in a hurry and forget the double negative. You don't want to do that. Take your time. We're going to now distribute through that minus 4/5. So that is minus 4/5 x. Double negative makes it a positive. We multiply. So 4 times 3 is a 12. So that's going to be 12 over 5. We want it in both standard form and in slope-intercept. We need to clear our fractions. So to do that, we're going to multiply all of it by 5. So that's 5y plus 20 equals a minus 4x plus 12. It doesn't matter which one we do first. We just need to get it eventually in both standard and slope-intercept. We've already gotten rid of the fractions. I'm just going to go ahead and put it in standard form first. So move that 4 over. So move that 4x over. And then move the 20 over as well. And then in standard form, we have 4x plus 5y. And combining, it looks like a negative 8 there. So that's going to be in standard form. We also need it in slope-intercept. So let's go ahead now and get it in slope-intercept. And for slope-intercept, we've got 4x plus 5y equals negative 8. We'll move that 4 over. And 5y equals now minus 4x minus 8. Divide by your 5 everywhere. Now in slope-intercept form, we've got y equals a minus 4/5 x and a minus 8/5. And that's it. That again is one of the most commonly missed questions. Where do students make a mistake at? They make a mistake here in the double negatives. They make an error down here where they start moving numbers around. Take your time. That's going to be it for today. Now let's talk about what's going to happen next week. Just so we all know how the points are and what's going to happen next week. Okay, so next week is our final.
Next week's the final?
Mm-hmm. Yep, next week is the final. Now, that final exam is going to be worth 300 points. Okay, so it's 3 tests put together. You are going to know exactly what's on there. If it is on the practice final, it is on the take-home final, and it is on the final itself. Students do very well if you do the take-home final and the practice final. You will do great on your final exam. The final exam scores are normally all A's and B's because you know exactly what you're looking for. Now, what can you have on the final? Well, you can have either notes, so 1 page of notes, or note cards. Make sure you bring a calculator. Also bring in some scratch paper. Also due next week is going to be your take-home final. That's worth 100 points, and that'll be graded. Okay, shouldn't take that long. This is just your way of studying for your final, is to do the take-home final. You also want to turn in the practice final. So I know it's already done for you, but I want you to go ahead and work through it, and you'll get 15 points if you complete your practice final. Also, all homework is due next week. So when we take our final, you'll want to make sure you turn in your homework as well. So if you're missing any back homework, make sure that I get it next week. Well, and that's going to be it for today. So make sure you're prepared next week for that final. We're going to come in and we can spend a few minutes reviewing if we need to. Otherwise, we'll just start our final. and I'll be picking up your take-home final and your homework while you take your final and be grading them. And I should be able to at least get your final graded. I might be able to also get your final and your take-home final graded and tell you your overall grade. If I don't get it done next Wednesday in class, I'll get it done on Wednesday afternoon. I try to get grades done as soon as possible. That way you know where you're at. Okay, so that's going to be it. And I will see everyone then next week for the final exam and our last week of class.
Wow.
And before I forget, Madison, I got some graded homework. Okay. And if you're missing any homework, make sure I get it either today or next week at the very latest, on Wednesday when we take our final.